Namaskar and welcome to this exciting show on psychology debunking mythology. Today we are addressing a very important issue on our campuses, which is I call it the scourge of the left. And the more we talk about it, the more is better. We should not be just depending on one talk or the other. I have a special person with us who is an author, thinker, a guide and mentor to many people. He's a political analyst and he talks on different channels in India. And also he has been a very regular with us to educate all of us. Now, with him, he has seen the rise and the fall of this leftist communism, or it is how it dominates the mind of the youngsters. Now, how it dominates, why it dominates, and what is the end result of it. We all need to talk about it and talk about it openly. So let us, without delay, let's welcome Sri Ratan Sharda, who has joined us from Mumbai, and Namaskar, and he's going to talk to us about all these things. You in you know what is most of the students don't even understand what is the left, and they have no idea about the left. And in fact, the polarization in politics is so complete in the U.S. campuses today that many of the campuses in Seattle and other places in Washington State and even in Oklahoma to some extent have been closed down for months. And if they open up, there are the police is not able to control them those campuses. So what is the left, which students should understand?
See, left was basically an ideology of the means of production, how you control production, and how you distribute wealth. That is how the left started. See, if people are not aware that actually in the UK Parliament, the people who believed in communism and socialism, who believed that the means of production should be controlled by the state and not by individuals, they sat on the left side. So that is how the leftist term came along. But slowly, after the left, in a way, failed in the sense that the communist victory in Russia, in China, slowly withered away. Slowly, it unraveled itself and it was a failure. So, as the communism failed, as the Russian empire collapsed, USSR collapsed, the disillusioned Marxists and communists realized that this will not work anymore. A neo left was invented that encompasses all the aspects of human life, not just economy. And that is where the trouble started. And as famously has been said, that if you are not a leftist in your youth, you don't have a heart. But if you are leftist till in your 40s, then you don't have a mind, not a brain. Because logically, it doesn't work. A human being doesn't work unless he or she can get reward for his or her efforts. So that is why a Russian empire collapsed. That is why China had to move to capitalism in the guise of communism, but actually it is a state-controlled capitalism. And people have been given right to property, to right to profit. That is how China rose again. So it's a human nature to own up the fruits of the labor and own up something. That is only how the human being succeeds. So that is where communism fails. Now, coming to the other aspect of left, what left has deteriorated to is basically to create fault lines and use fault lines to somehow disintegrate the society. So any established institution has to be attacked because they can't create anything. You see the failure of Venezuela. Forget about the old communist regimes. Venezuela was a thriving economy just below USA, doing wonderfully well, had a lot of wealth from oil, and it was just withered, which just frittered away. And it is such a bad state, it has become a basket case. So how can an ideology, wherever it has gone, has actually bankrupted the country, spoiled their society? In between their own countries, 110 million people have been killed by the so-called revolution. They have eaten away their own daughters and sons. You have to add Stalin, Lenin, Mao, and even the North Korea, for example, Pol Pot in Korea. So all these people have spoiled people's life, killed people in millions, and you cannot expect such a destructive ideology to be constructive. I'm very sure the students basically are looking for a constructive society. But this idea of destroying the families, destroying the institution of marriage, somehow trying to destroy the state power. If you look at Black Lives Matter, it ultimately deteriorated into a purely anarchist movement where the left took control, and the same left is now trying to take control of Democrats Party. Democrat Party was not such an extreme left party, but since your last presumptive president who lost the election in the primaries, and now Joe Biden, the way they have been taking support of extreme left of Antifa and other people to somehow gain weight, votes, shows that there is no way out. And it is not that they don't have persecution of minorities. You look at China, the Uyghurs, they have been persecuted heavily. 1 million Uyghurs, Muslims are today in captive camps. Russia had Siberian camps. So it is not that they don't have inequality, they don't exploit people. They exploit the people in the name of the state, others exploit in the name of something else. So this particular horrendous side of left, once we understand, we realize. Secondly, in academics, liberals are most illiberal than anybody else. They don't allow alternative voices. They don't allow anybody to do PhD, which is against the thoughts of the dominant left or head of the department. Try and you'll find out. You try to present a PhD on Indology or Hindu thought with an Indian perspective, you will not be allowed to do it, or you will be tried to be weaned away from that, mindset. So this entire game of disrespecting every civilization, creating a chaotic atmosphere. So ultimately, the left triumphs is something that students have to understand. That this is basically most intolerant religion in conjunction with Islam, which is exclusivist, highly exclusivist, where nothing is right. Communist as a religion is equally fascist, equally totalitarian, which does not allow any alternative voice. And this is, if these two come together, you can imagine what will happen to the actual liberals, actual people looking for freedom. In America, you can say all this because it is totally free, and it is free because of democracy. And you can't have any democracy in any left country. Tell me one country controlled by your communists where there is democracy. Are students ready to have a country, live in a country which is totally totalitarian, where there is no multi-party democracy, where there is no freedom of choice or freedom of voice?
Yeah, you nailed it actually, because these people, they capture the young minds in the name of liberalism and protest against the existing norms, and also coming back, talking about how the progressiveness is what they're talking about. But in the end, there is no liberty left for the common man. They all wanted liberty. They campaigned on liberty and freedom and liberalism, but actually they enslave you in the end, and there is no freedom at the end of the day. Another thing you said very importantly is that when the people reach 40, at that time you just quoted someone, and at the age of 40 they think they have nothing left for them, nothing, no money, nothing. So at that time everybody turns conservative. This is the world phenomenon.
I'll tell you a very interesting thing. All the socialist politicians, all the communist politicians of India have their sons and daughters studying in USA. And many of them are settled in USA. If they hate capitalism, if they hate USA, why are there communist and socialist friends coming here, settling down here? All the bureaucrats, diplomats who don't, shy away from abusing America for imperialism, etc., have their families settled here. So this is highly hypocritical kind of thinking. It is hypocrisy that you want to enjoy the fruits of capitalism and freedom, but you at the same time will kick those people who are giving that comfort and that progress.
Yeah, it's a culture of ingratitude towards the money. See, everyone needs money. Without an empty stomach, you can't do anything. And liberalism or ultra-leftist, socialist, communism has never fed anybody. Large countries have collapsed. India was a very poor country until they were socialistic totally. After 91, they have become a much more powerful force with the capitalism.
You'll be surprised that Greens have 2 full-fledged ships, which cost billions of dollars. Maintenance costs millions of dollars. And they're supposed to be telling people how to be green and how to fight injustice and how to save environment. And they are the biggest empire themselves.
Exactly. And
all the NGOs have maximum money. NGOs is the biggest business in India today. Billions of dollars come to India through the NGOs, and they have the best of their life at the cost of people in whose name they collect money. It's a hoax, basically.
It's a total hoax. Even in the US also, I think more and more people are realizing that in a big way. now one important question comes to the mind, that the how did many of the universities of India cope with this issue of leftism and communism in their campuses?
See, actually, in India, left is not left. It is not left anymore. It is exhausted. See, on the outer front, on the political side, on the election side, on the overground, they are finished. They hardly have any MPs left. They have hardly any governments left. Only Kerala is left. They lose next election. That happens every alternative time. Then what is left is there are some campuses which they are holding for their own sake. So there are namely, there are about 6-7 central universities which are their forts, where they pollute people's mind, inculcate the typical anarchic mindset in the name of culture studies, in the name of hegemony, etc. And those brainwashed people go and teach others. They have no other space. They become teachers themselves there. They lived on then our taxpayers' money for 10 years, 15 years in the campuses, and then they become staff there. They become teachers there, and they just have a wonderful life at the cost of taxpayers. And that is where their forts are. That is why if you see the current rebellious, continuous agitations in JNU, because they fear they are losing the grip. That is, there is Jadavpur University, there is JNU, there is Aligarh University, Jamia Millia. So there are about 7 to 8 universities where they still have a good hold, because the academics themselves, the professors themselves, have tightly controlled the entire selection scenario, the choosing of the students for fellowships, to choosing a student for scholarships. It is all controlled by the same coterie in those universities. And that is the reason why you feel there is a lot of left. They have mind space because they are controlling the academics even now, because these are the people who become the new teachers. The cultural studies from these JNU was spread to about 110 central universities by these leftist academicians, and these academics had their own students who went there as teachers. So that multiplier effect was there, but people who actually, as you see, as they see the real life, they realize it is not actually what is meant to be. So there is a bubble in which they live. That bubble has that control on academics yet, and that is why they are very upset, very angry. See the outburst of their mentors at various levels. So they also are losing hold, but yes, they are still there. They have the 70 years of hard work behind them, government's support, the ruling party support, and their own groundwork they have done, and the kind they have controlled the admissions to institutions, admission to academics, admission to their fellowships. So that is where they have been able to control their on these campuses at least.
Now, with Bernie Sanders, who was a very polarizing figure on the American campuses. Now, I'd like to clarify a little bit, and Ratanji, please, you can correct me there. The being religious doesn't mean you cannot be left also, because sometimes you think that if you're religious, you're automatically on the right. So we do not want to be either on the left or on the right. We want to be with the common sense, because fanaticism on either side is bad. And so it doesn't matter which side you're on. So either you're pro or you're anti, but going extreme in either direction is not good, because it is sometimes the best result is in the middle. So being religious doesn't mean you're automatically right, because that's the general impression which is being sent out, that if you're religious, you're
The entire definition of left and right on the cultural side is totally out of date. It is not at all working, because as such, if you're religious, you cannot be left. You cannot be communist, because communism abhors religion. It says opium for the masses. They are supposed to be atheists. Of course, they are not. Many of them are not. But basically, they're anti-religion. They're anti-spiritualism. For them, materialism is the base. If materialism is the base, then they cannot be spiritual. They cannot be religious. So that is point one. Point two: if you have compassion in your heart, if you have sensitivity of human suffering and trying to serve the human beings, then you cannot be called right wing, because right wing basically is a terminology which has been it is very loaded. Right wing is a terminology which exacts its meaning from Nazism, from fascism, so or even the extreme Christianity or radical Islam. These are the isms which actually deny any other ideology, deny any other thought process, deny any other freedom. So if that is the case, then when you say right wing, beware, it is not the correct terminology. It puts you the people who are actually liberal, who are actually plural, into the same bracket in which these people fall. So this definition is a very carefully disseminated and never get trapped into right-wing definition.
No, very well put, very, very well put. Because what we see is, especially if you talk about the Hindu religion, and because I do not know about other religions very well, as well as Hinduism. In Hinduism, there's a concept called dharmic, which is a logical, reasonable stance, which is neither left nor right. It's very centrist. So if you follow that path, see, in a life, many situations are needed to fight or tackle with. Sometimes you have to protect your rights. So you may pretend to be on the left side, and sometimes you have to protect
No,
the.
no, Aditya ji, Krishna fought for dharma. Krishna does not become left-wing because he fought for dharma. So you have a righteous way to fight for your dharma, for righteous duties, for ethics in public life. You have to fight, but that does not make you left. By this, you are giving your entire monopoly to left of struggle. No, no, no. Struggle is not monopoly of left. We people who follow the dharma, ethics of life, duty of life, have done equally well for the struggle of the downtrodden, for the people. Swami Vivekananda said that it is not you're not obliging anybody by doing service to the human beings. You see God in that human being. God has given you a chance to serve the poor, and you see God in poor. So that is Hindu philosophy. That does not make you left-wing at all.
No,
So
that's not
don't fall
what
into
I
the
meant.
trap of saying the struggle is monopoly of left. That is where we fall into wrong traps.
No, no, that was not my point actually. What I was trying to say was, when you are dharmic, means you are centrist, but at the same time, the karma philosophy binds us to, something where if something injustice is being done as a reaction, so karma philosophy binds us more in a centrist way. But if you go, but you are absolutely right there, because as a dharma philosophy, we have a right to protect our life, right to protect our rights actually. So coming back to this question of the what the American universities, they talk about the right
Before
wing.
you complete, I'll just complete your thought on karma. See,
uh
karma gives you direction to improve your karma and come out of the situation you are got into. But in Abrahamic religion, you say ये खुदा की मर्जी है, ये God की मर्जी है. It is will of God. There is no reason at all. Why you are suffering? There is no logic. There is nothing. If God is so forgiving, God is so graceful, why should anybody suffer? So there is a basic difference in the way we treat karma for what we are doing, what we will suffer, or what we will gain is very different from totally mercy of the God. Because if God is merciful, then I should never suffer. I suffer because I have done something wrong sometime, and for that there is a counter which we call the karma phal. So that is where we differ from these philosophies.
yeah, in any case, we cannot blame God for anything. It's all our own actions.
Yeah.
If we do burn things, then we automatically land up in places where we don't want.
So
Now,
we don't have any fatalism. Fatalism is basically a construct of Abrahamic religions.
exactly. I mean, the divine and the hell, permanent heaven. These are not the concepts that we have in, especially before moksha and other things. Now, coming back to this relevant point for the university, there, the 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 demonization of the right wing, and which is like the anything which is pro, this big demonization on the mindset of the students, that how are you supporting, like people, if somebody is supporting the president of the United States, how are you supporting him? The same thing was there for Obama, also same thing is there for Trump. For Trump it's even worse because of the leftist indoctrination in a big way on the campuses. So how does we understand the today's situation? Like today's situation is, if you are a Trump supporter, that means you must be a racist, bigoted, and everything possible that you can do, which is a very wrong characterization. So now people do not have the free will, especially at the student level, which is I'm not talking about politics at all here, but just to the name. At the student level, there is no freedom. If you go to a campus, if you don't go to a cafeteria, and in the cafeteria you speak, even if your mind, you're being honest without being political, you exactly put in the trash over there, right there. So there is no practical freedom left, like you were saying earlier, that there is no freedom of choice. They start with liberalism, but they come up with a very condescending attitude, very abusive attitude. You look at the social media posts of these kind of leftist people, like you cannot make an argument. Like they said it, they pass a judgment on you. It's a highly condescending attitude, and there is nothing left for any sensible person to defend themselves.
So
So
it is
what?
very similar. Yes, it is very similar to what is in India because this is the uniform global attitude of left and communists. Now they don't use word communist because that is a word which is pejorative, in the Western world. But basically, communism comes from Marx, and you may name it left or whatever. And so left today is much more extreme than even communism was probably in terms of. I would they are equally thoughtful. They thoughtful is they have defined a worldview in which you must fit. If you don't fit, you're out of it. As I said, is highly exclusivist, totalitarian, fascist religion which is left today, and we have to realize that you have to be objective. We have to stand up. We have ground. We stood at the ground in India. India was tightly controlled by the left thought process, beginning from Nehru, academics, media, everything. But people had a very strong roots in their own tradition and culture. It was not matching up to what we thought and what those people thought. So this mismatch with what they wanted to impose on the people and what was our own traditional civilization memories didn't match, and finally they lost the battle. So this is similarly, if US citizens, the young, go back to their own country, apart from the slavery, that actually was abolished by the same people whom they hate today. That abolition of slavery was an effort to end the discrimination and exploitation of human. And it started, if you remember, Bible was used to justify it. So it was religion was used to justify it. That is the reason, left very easily can, destroy the religious argument. But we are not against that religion. Even Jesus didn't talk of this. Jesus talked about equality. Jesus talked of mercy. Jesus talked about service to the poor. But when it became institutionalized, we saw it was being used by imperialists, by the exploitative people, and that has finished. The greatness of this, your nation, comes from its freedom, from its, individual freedom and ability to do whatever we want to do. That opportunity you get is what has made America great. It is not the greatness left which made what it was, because as I told you, left everywhere in the world has failed. Left has destroyed economies, destroyed countries, destroyed societies. So look at where left takes you. You may find yourself very fanciful. You might find yourself very great when you abuse somebody and you say, okay, this is the better worldview. But what is the end result? If there is nobody to, create revenue or create wealth, how do you distribute? Very simple. Ask the Democrats who had this great man who was their candidate, a presumptive president candidate. He never explained from where the money will come. Money doesn't grow on trees, as it is said generally. You have to work hard, you have to create wealth, only then it can be distributed. There may be wrong things where the wealth is not distributed. That is true of your communism also. The comrades who rule on the top, they have got $1 million empires, whether the military regime, whether it's communist party regime, they control everything. And there are the hoi polloi, the bourgeois, the so-called proletariat. So the defects in the society can be, on the economic system can be much better repaired in capitalism than in socialism or in communism. So you have to stand your ground. Ask them what is the ground for this. Did Antifa not create racial riots? Did Antifa not destroy shops and super malls of people who worked hard to create them, whether Indians or whether they were whites or even blacks? So that is not the way to fight. You are fighting against the injustice. You fight against the injustice, against the legal system. You cannot destroy people's lives. That is hate. That is not creating a society. So this idea of destroying society is what is going to end up in the left finally being thrown out of US also. This glamour will go because, as I said time and again, please look at the world where left has taken the countries which have got into the control of communism or so-called socialists.
No,
Please just visit your next door neighbor, Venezuela. Don't go to Russia. Don't go to China.
Very good point. And just want to make a point on the Australia. Before 1960, the Aborigines or the originals of Australia, a little bit changing the topic as well. The Aborigines of Australia in 1960 were brought under the Flora and Fauna Act. That means they were considered on par with animals. Now, whether you call it a religious-oriented discrimination or racial discrimination still need to be seen. But I would call it a real effect of leftism, which has no humanity or no emotions left there. Same in the US. When the Europeans came here, the Native Americans got their American citizenship in 1924. After 300
Oh, I didn't
years,
know that.
1924.
Those were the owners of the nation, actually.
That's what they claim. That's what they claim. And today also Supreme Court passed a law that the Native Americans will be in Oklahoma, because most of the Oklahoma is designated to be a reservation. Many of them live there, so they passed a law yesterday that they're going to be prosecute them under federal laws, and so Native Americans are up in arms again, and there are 6 million of them in
That
the
is
United
horrible. That is horrible.
States. So six
So are these left today with the natives or not? They
they're,
will
they're,
go there. They will go there, but that is where you give them chance to enter a place where you see injustice. Why there should be injustice, whether you believe in communism or not, because this injustice is immaterial what economic policy you follow.
Yeah, it's so ironical that today, when we talk about racial equality, what about the people who are the original?
And see, left talks of equality, gender equality. When did women get right to vote in West?
In
It
1950s?
was hardly a century or so, or even less than that. So this is that typical, old world mindset which had to change, and it changed with education. It didn't change because of Marx. It changed because the societies became educated, they become sensitive, and this ruling against native Indians, of course, is horrendous. I don't think judiciary has actually been imbibed with the American culture. There is something definitely wrong there.
So one interesting question has come up, is that what does Hinduism, where does Hinduism stand with respect to Abrahamic faith? This is the question which has come up. So Ratanji, what do you say on that, please?
See, this Brahmanical term is very deceiving term. It has been invented by the left, by the people who want to destroy Hindu society. There is no Brahmanical law. Hindu Dharma, and we had Varna system where people who reached certain spiritual level, who had knowledge, were called Brahmins. It didn't have any caste aspersions. As you will know that Valmiki was a dacoit. He became a Brahma Rishi because of the way he evolved. You had Jabali Muni, who was son of a prostitute, who went to a Rishi, and Rishi asked him, who is your father? He said, I don't know, Guru. Who is my father? My mother told me, I don't know who my father is. He was so happy, he took him as under his teachership, and he became a big Rishi. We have Vedavyasa, who was son of a fisherwoman. So we don't have any idea of, had no idea of untouchability. We had no cast iron rule for different varnas. We had a varna which depended on your, if you see Gita, it is dependent on your inclination to do certain things. So when you are studying, you are a Brahmin. When you are fighting a war, you are a Kshatriya. When you are doing trade and you are doing production, you are a Vaishya. When you are doing menial labor, you are a Shudra. I as a person am all the four. So if this is understood, then there is no sense of Brahminism. Brahmins are just 2.5%. They were the preservers of the legacy of our tradition. Why they are hated by the West? Why they are hated by British? And why they are hated today by these people who want to destroy Hindu society? Because they, in spite of all the attacks on them, all the atrocities, refused to leave Dharma. They saved their Dharma. They saved the rituals. They saved the scriptures. All the scriptures that are still alive are only because of those Brahmins. Because they were the custodians of knowledge. Whether they were by caste Brahmins or not, as we have frozen today, I don't know. But they were the gurus. They were the people who preserved that. So this is the hate. This is the hate because that preservation has led to the preservation of entire Hindu culture, of the entire Hindu heritage. That is why they hate them, because they have somehow keep this country down, because it's a unique tradition, unique knowledge system which ruled the country the world till 1850 with its knowledge, technology, and all that. So now somehow to put it down, you create a Brahminism and all that. That has no sense at all. It is knowledge system. Now, what is the knowledge system of USA based on the professors? And how many professors there in USA? Maybe just 1% of the population. So we'll call them Brahminical. You cannot call them Brahminical. They worked hard to create knowledge. They worked hard to disseminate knowledge and pass it on to the new generations. And that is a hard work they put in. And they were the people who were killed in millions in India by invaders because they were custodians of the culture. So when you want to kill somebody, kill the education institutions. You destroy Nalanda, you destroy Takshashila. So you destroy the entire civilization of memory. So that is how you try to overcome the civilization. But somehow we had these so-called Brahmins who kept themselves, they even at the cost of their lives, they preserved that knowledge. That is how we know that we had that knowledge. Now we know that we had those ideas. Even 500 years back under Islamic rule, we had wonderful mathematicians, we had wonderful scientists, wonderful surgeons. So that is what people hate. These left people hate that because that is what has kept this civilization alive, the only living civilization in the world.
No, thank you so much. And I think we've reached the top of the hour. Ratan, it's always a pleasure to speak with you. And I hope he answered most of your questions. I asked two of your questions directly to him. And we would like to have this deep discussion next time whenever Ratanji comes back. And please keep joining many shows on Sathology. Many guest speakers come and discuss things. Our whole purpose is to educate all of you, our audience, especially the American audience, and also other international audience who is watching also. The purpose of this channel is mostly education. It's a mission. So join the local Sathology club in your college. If you do not have the Sathology club, start a Sathology club. And next time when Ratanji comes, we'll have a college tour with all of you. So namaskar and thank you.
Thank you so much, Andy.